Hi, you're listening to She Shield, your one-stop pod for all things personal safety. I'm your host, Sophia, and my goal is to help educate women and men on concealed carry, martial arts, and all topics self-defense. This podcast is sponsored by Big Tex Ordnance, your soon-to-be favorite retailer for all of your firearm needs. BTO believes in only selling high-quality gear for responsibly armed citizens, as well as providing pre- and post-sales support. BTO values firearms training and supports firearms instructors nationwide. They even pay for their staff to train with high-level instructors to ensure that when you call as the consumer, you get taken care of. Today, we have Adelina Mae on the show. Addie is the owner of her own firearms instruction business named Girls Just Want to Have Guns. She's a competitive shooter, personal trainer, and overall badass. I met Adelina at SHOT Show and instantly realized I wanted to be her friend. And not only do you, Addie, train women to feel more empowered with firearms, but you were also so encouraging to me during my first time at SHOT Show when I just wanted to pass out when I walked in for the first time. So I would love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yes. Hi, I am Addie. Like she said, I am the owner of Girls Just Want to Have Guns. She kind of just said everything. I wear a lot of different hats daily. Unfortunately, it's different times of the day I wear different hats. So that's just my lifestyle. But I was thinking about today, I was like, if this is really my grind, this is the dream. I'm literally living my dream daily. There's things that I could complain about, of course. But at the end of the day, looking at it, I get to live as a young person living the actual dream. I own my own firearms instruction company. So Girls Just Want to Have Guns is my main shtick. We travel the nation to teach women how to shoot, and we like to call them we like to call them parties. So we don't call them classes. We don't really call them events or experiences, but we host parties. So it's almost like it's a birthday party, but it's no one's birthday, and we shoot guns. So same thing as a Mary Kay or a Pampered Chef kind of thing. You can bring all your friends and we do a bunch of stuff. So the idea is we know that women get intimidated by firearms, or they were previously had a bad experience, or being with their husband or their dad or whatever. The message didn't quite land from them. So we wanted to provide an experience where we take them away from that person. While that in itself is nerve-wracking, even though they already had a bad experience with that person, we take them away from them. We take them away from the husband who takes the gun whenever there's a problem and they just fix it and they don't really teach them anything. And we put them in that environment. So because we know that that's a little bit intimidating, we provide a space where we have charcuterie boards and refreshments and photo backdrops and t-shirts and raffles and giveaways and all that kind of stuff for the girls coming. So it's more of an aesthetic event. And kind of the idea behind it was a women's retreat from a church kind of perspective, but it's completely different because it's a business and firearms related. But on top of that, we also do the firearms safety classes with that. So we wanted it to be something enticing. We wanted it to be something that people want to come to. We want it to be a party that everyone's how do I get invited to this? So that's what we do. And then we turned it into basically a full-fledged tour across the nation. So when I started the company, it was kind of just something because my mom needed it. And I realized that it's a thing that a lot of women need in their home. They have firearms in their home. They're told to use them in an emergency situation, but they don't know how to do anything about it because their husband takes them every time. And they hand them a gun loaded and ready to go. They pull the trigger, something happens, they take the gun, they reload it, they do whatever. They don't teach them anything. So what I do is I make them learn it all and make them do it all. And even if I load the magazine to show them how to, I unload it before giving it back to them to make them do it. So we started with one event in California because I thought it was cool. A few months later, moved to Arizona, did one event, didn't necessarily think of it as my full-time job or potentially being a full-time job. I thought it would be an every 2 month kind of thing and be a side job. And then after that, I decided to leave my career job or my 9-to-5 job that actually was paying my bills because I didn't like the company. And I got bored that day because I had not a legal issue, but he thought I had a legal issue with leaving the company. So I had to go home. And when I went home, I was home for a whole day without plans, which is very dangerous for me. And I planned 6 events across 6 states in 6 months. And that turned into 7. And so that started July of last year. And that was the 1st of July because I left on the 1st of July of that company. And by July 31st, we were having our first event of that 6-month period. And in the first 6 months of the tour, I guess you could say, we went to Idaho. We drove to Idaho. We're based in Arizona, so keep that in mind. We drove to Idaho, Texas, California, Las Vegas, obviously here in Phoenix. And then we also got asked by Shooters World Orlando to come to Orlando in one of those months as well. So we did that. And then after that, we started doing private parties in Gilbert, Arizona, private lessons, expanding the business there because it's kind of turned into more of my full-time job. All the while I was personal training Monday through Friday in the mornings. And then as of this year, we kind of finished December and I was like, well, we can't just like stop. Like, of course it's the business keeps rolling. So we got to come up with new events. So since January 1, we have gone to Orlando, Tampa in the same event, Southern California, Arizona. And that was within the first 3 months of 2023. This past month, we went to Southern California. And then tonight I leave and I go to Tampa or Orlando for this weekend. And then we are going to Idaho next month. So we basically now moving forward have 1 to 2 events a month. And that is kind of what we do. And we're adding new locations and we're adding new people and offering new things. So super exciting and fun to watch it come to life, especially as somebody who thought of it, made it happen, and then just kind of watched it flourish.
That's amazing. That is
So
so
fun.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And you have an Instagram for your instruction business only, which I will absolutely
Yes.
put in the show notes. So if you're interested while you're listening to this episode, kind of scrolling through and seeing what her party looks like. I was going to say class, but
Yeah.
party. I love that so
Yeah.
much. Then you should definitely do that, listener. And then, so what does a typical party day look like for you, your curriculum and whatnot?
So the days are actually, I would say I got it down at this point. I'm very used to it, but they are long days. Like this past
Okay.
weekend, we had our normal event day, and then we start the day basically around an hour to an hour and a half before the class begins. And then we have to tear it on afterwards. We have 2 classes a day plus a little like 30-minute intro in the middle, unless we are doing 3 class periods. So we have lots going on during that time period. Basically we set up. The reason we drive to everywhere besides Florida is because I actually have pink Target stands that my boyfriend welded and Cerakoted for me. So things like that, like we bring the tables, we bring the chairs, we bring the backdrops, we bring that all with us. So that's the reason we drive. We also have 2 canines. So if you hear them, I apologize. They're those dogs, you can't crate them. I mean, I could, but it'd be very difficult. So, you know, bringing them, and then also pretty much every trip we've done, like I can confidently say that shooting, regardless of being competition shooting or my business, has taken me around the country to do things. So, you know, we go to California and we see our parents, and we went to Coeur d'Alene and we saw my parents. My parents live there now. And, you know, we went to Orlando and we were able to go to the wedding, but also make the trip for the wedding pay for itself because we did that. So I would say that shooting literally has taken me around the country. So that's another reason we drive. So we drive there. Usually it's a turnaround trip because I work Tuesday through Thursday now in the morning. So we drive either Friday night or Friday mid all day. We get there, we pretty much hit the ground running. There's very little to no time of like, let's explore the city. Let's do this. Let's do that. It's very packed in. So like tonight, we leave tonight. We fly to Orlando. We land at about 4 a.m. We'll probably get breakfast somewhere. And then when we get there, because we are flying versus driving, I have to source the refreshments, food, any type of desserts that we're going to be having there, custom cookies if I order them ahead of time, or donuts or whatever it may be. Get the photo backdrop, get everything set up. And then we actually have a class tomorrow night in Tampa. So then we will check into our Airbnb, get everything in the car, drive to Tampa, set up Tampa, teach for 3 hours, pack up, go home to our Airbnb, and then wake up and do the same thing in Orlando at 9 a.m. and do the same thing again at 3 p.m. in Orlando, and then hopefully have dinner, see some friends Sunday all day, and then fly home Sunday night, be ready to go for Monday morning for work. So that
oh my goodness
is my lifestyle. Yeah, so that's basically, yes. And like to give you like a nutshell, I trained clients today 5 a.m. to 10, had a meeting 10 to 11, had firearm shooting, like one-on-one lessons from 12 to 3:30, got home, hopped on the podcast, and then I leave tonight at 10:20 or 8:30 for our flight tonight. So that's what I say, like, yes, I could complain about a lot of my stuff, but also like if this is what I'm complaining about, like I'm living the dream, you know?
That's a beautiful way to look at it. First of all, I feel honored. Thank you for working me in because I know we
Yeah,
originally had another day planned, but I've been moving into a new house, so it's been crazy.
and
Secondly,
congratulations,
what you
very
just
exciting.
thank you so much. Yes, very exciting. And I don't know, I just have to say this. What's that movie where the guy's like, club, club, another club, or
Yes,
like sleep,
very,
club,
very. I
whatever?
think it was a video of Lady Gaga. She was talking about like club, bus,
Yes.
plane, another club. Yeah, very much so my lifestyle. And like, yes, I have a lot of days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to get this all done. Like, I still have orders open for an apparel company that I kind of run. And we basically just, we sell basically like one thing right now. We have a bunch of options and products, but we sell one sticker and t-shirt that says "Kill Your Local Pedophile" on it. And we had like 30, 40 orders come in last week. Well, when they came in, it was like Thursday. So then I was gone Friday, and then we came back Sunday, and then Monday I had one day to recoup for work the next day, which like my laundry has to get done sometimes. And then I had to work Tuesday,
Right, right,
Wednesday, Thursday. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get the stickers out tomorrow. I'm like, okay, well, it's already been a week since those orders have been in. And these people are going to be like,
right.
okay, well, I don't even have a confirmation of you sending them or whatever. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know if it's going to get done, but at some point I have to realize, like, I hope people can have grace for me. I will explain myself to the fullest.
Yes,
But sometimes, like, that sticker is
totally.
not going to get out for a week and a half. And if that means I have to comp them their order, it is what it is, So super
Yes,
exciting things
absolutely.
in life.
Absolutely. And so what is that brand called?
That brand is called Faceless Gear. Literally just typed
Facebook.
out Faceless Gear on Instagram, and then online it's www.facelessgear.com. The
Love it.
reason it's the logo is a guy with a ski mask on. I actually probably have, this is my little office in here. So this is the brand. So if you see this, that's my brand.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so that's kind of
I
what we
love
do.
that.
It's very, very small, but it's just because we have the logos that I've designed. I used to do graphic design for a little while, and I was like, I don't want to give these logos up, and I still want them to be available.
Yeah,
So anyways, long story short, we're probably going to have to go to a third party dealer for that soon because I don't have the time to do it. But that's
that's fair.
that's life.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, as I'm sure your customers will understand, and I'm sure a lot of them know you and know that you're, involved in so many things. Because I know, like, I don't know which page of mine I was on the other day, but I found you on another apparel brand, and I was like, wait, is this another one she owns? Or like, damn, like you have so much going
Yeah.
on. It's
Yeah. I
so
actually think I have
impressive.
6 Instagram accounts on my phone that I have access to run.
Really?
And well, I have
Okay.
5 because Instagram only allows you to have 5, but I have like 6 that I have
Oh,
access
okay.
to. But
Gotcha.
top 3 being my personal competition influencing Instagram, personal training,
Yes.
and then my instruction business. But then also I have the apparel business, which I quite honestly just don't put much time into because I have other priorities.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I just saw that you're about to hit 60K on Instagram. That is
Yeah. I've
so
kind of been
exciting.
teetering there for quite a while.
That
But
happens.
also, I mean, could be because like content's changed over time. My focus has changed over
Or
time. Like for when I'm prepping for a bikini competition, my focus kind of goes a little bit more fitness side of things. And, people go up and down as far as following, but also, um, shadow banning has been a big thing. Certain things that I
yes.
do have gone viral, and then, it's just Instagram, social media is a whole nother conversation as far as like growing.
Yeah.
And I have so many people that message me, and at this point, it's kind of weird, but people are like, "Well, I think I'm going to start an Instagram page for guns and stuff. Like, how did you grow yours?" And like, well, one, if I told you how to do this, I'd be charging. Two,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
two,
Yes. Yeah.
times are different from when I started 5 years ago versus now. Like, it's really hard to grow in the firearms industry right now just because of how much shadow banning there is. And I don't say that
Yeah.
because like my posts just don't do well. Like I think right now I'm not shadow banned, so that's good. But if for
Good,
a
good,
long
yes.
time, even my business account, if you typed in the actual name of the business or of my Instagram account, it would not come up unless you typed it in letter for letter, and that is a big like red flag for shadow banning. And then also,
Yes.
engagement goes down, or the views go down because it's not being shown to people, and so you kind of have to fight for it, which
Yeah.
makes me really envious of people who don't run businesses in the firearms industry. I'm like, you have it so easy.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. I'm kind of on like social media growth TikTok right now,
Hmm.
and that's been a big topic on like how to grow, but you can't, like, you can implement as many strategies as you want, but if you're posting about firearms, like, it's kind of a coin toss on whether or not you're going to be shadow
Yeah.
banned. And
And
the
there's a lot of
content is usually, go ahead, sorry.
no, I was gonna say there's a lot of like hoops you have to jump through. And like you have to
Yes.
write your captions specifically and like not use certain words or use emojis instead or use asterisks to cover out the vowels so it's not an actual word. It's just so dumb. And it's like
Yes.
not one, like you can be naked on Instagram and not get shadow banned, but you can't have a firearm in your hand.
Yes.
And the other thing is like the videos of people being stupid with firearms go viral, but the videos of people instructing and giving education are being banned. And it's like, I'm trying to make it safer. Like, if anything, this is what should be promoted because I'm trying to help whatever the media's strategy of getting firearms out of our hand is that they're so dangerous. Okay, well, like let's make the community safer.
You know, I've never had this topic on the podcast before. And like, I recently learned, and I should have probably known this before, but I didn't realize that Meta itself is so much controlled by whoever sponsors it. So, like, Disney is very liberal, and because they sponsor Meta, they don't want to see
Mm-hmm.
firearms instruction and
Yeah.
promotion of firearms. However, why not show people being dumbasses with firearms? Because it will drive, like,
Mm-hmm. The
in their
hatred of
favor,
firearms.
that
Yeah.
firearms are like,
Yeah.
yes, I just thought that's crazy. That's so true. Yeah. I'm glad, given that though you're growing, and I hope you get over that hump, because I know how that feels, like
Yeah.
30K took forever for me. And of course, once
Yeah.
I got there, I was like, all right, here we go. Moving on. Keep them
Yeah.
going. Like,
Yeah.
just as
I
many
will
people
say
as you
like
can reach.
there are certain times in like social media growth, at least for me, that happened. And this is like purely my experience. Like getting to 30K was
Yeah.
like, and somebody told me this too. Like once it happens, like it happens in droves. So like I hit 1,000 followers and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm 17 in high school. I'm like, wow, I'm somebody. And they were like, once you hit like 10K, like it really just starts to flow. And that was true. Like it kind of just started to flow, but it was like a slow flow, like it was a trickle. And then like it kind of just kept going
Yes.
and kept going. And like, granted, I had big companies that I was featured on. And so that's why like I got those eyes to me. And I will say, like, my target audience, like my people who are following me, is not my target audience. So, like, you kind of have to cater to that, and that
Yeah.
kind of sucks because I know my followers are men. My target audience is women. So, like, you have to cater to
Yes.
your target audience, but also like don't lose these followers. So it's kind of hard to do that.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily need to drop names or anything, but like I did get posted by a lot of bigger accounts, which their main following is men looking to watch females, and so it's one of
Right.
those things where like, okay, well, I'm posting this. Who am I posting this to? It's like, okay, is this a 40-year-old dude in their basement? Like, yeah, I need to make sure like everything's super clean. Like, I don't want to be seen as that person. So that happened, but also there were certain
Yes.
times of growth where I think I hit like 32,000, and I looked at my coworkers who were like, "You got this. Like, you probably could grow your social media." I was like, "I could hit 40K by the end of this month." And they're like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I like went into it, and I think I grew like almost 40K really
That's
soon. But
amazing.
it was just like one of those times of social media that was a little bit easier to grow. And then like when the
That's
Reels
fair.
program
Yeah.
came out, I did really well on it. Like I did really well on it, but it was right when it came out. So there were certain months where I was actually making an income on that. And then all of a sudden
Same.
the actual like I guess the percentages changed to like how much your real view is worth money monetarily. So like monetization like went way down. So I was like, it's not even worth me posting like the way that I do anymore. So I definitely think that once that kind of went away, the incentive to post 2 to 3 times a day went way out the window. And I look at my content from back then now, I'm like, it was so funny. Like I actually came up with funny content and like I liked it. And now I
Yeah.
just feel like I'm like more scrambling to just put something up. And I posted one thing this week, which normally I post every day, just because I was like, I don't want to pull something out of my butt because I just want something on my page. Like the content wouldn't be good. It probably wouldn't be that funny. Like I want something that's creative and something that people want to actually view. And otherwise, like I'm just putting out crap for the world. Like that's just a waste. And also like it devalues everything else on your page. So I'm just really trying, like even last night, I was like, I haven't posted anything because I don't know what to post anymore. Like I can't post guns. I can't post like anything. And if I do, it has to be censored or an emoji over it, or I have to put a remote in my holster and not a fake gun or whatever. It's just kind of stupid, but I will say,
Yes.
like, you have to stay up on it. That's part of business. That's part of my life. Like, social media is a job because it's influencing or whatever. And so media is definitely something that I talk about a lot, just because I have learned the social media advertising and the business aspect and of the personal training aspect and of like the influencing aspect. I haven't really like Instagram for sure. I've done a lot of research and do a lot of research consistently on. But like the TikTok, YouTube stuff is not my strong suit. Definitely trying to get into that kind of into the YouTube part of things. But TikTok is just where I throw up my stupid, funny videos that I don't care about. But it's just the social media aspect of the world today. It's like, I look at people who have a business who don't have a social media, and I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, you're
Yes.
missing such a
Totally get
big
that.
part of business, because your social
Mhm.
media is your portfolio, and your portfolio
Yeah.
sends people to your website, and your website needs a portfolio for them to look at your past like projects. So if you don't have that, and then also I look at people who have a business Instagram account, and they run it like a meme page or their personal page, and I'm like, this looks so unprofessional. You reaching out to me,
Yeah.
DMing me if I want to work with you, when I look at your page looking to see if I want to work with your company, there's nothing about your company that I want to work with, because one, I don't see any product, or I don't see any service that you're offering. And I'm seeing, like, the funny stuff is here and there, but it's not your
Right.
only account. Like, it doesn't even just look like you it doesn't look like you're not putting any effort in. It looks like you just literally don't care about the account. So, like, for example, I'm looking for a location to do a event, and I was looking at all the ranges in the area. First place I looked on, I saw they have like 4.5 stars on Yelp, whatever, pictures on Yelp or on Google reviews. But I click on their website, and their website had an American flag, and it said, find us. I think it was like their phone number and their address. There was no other information. And then there was a link to the website or their Instagram. I clicked on their Instagram. The Instagram had one post. The post was a meme of like an otter, and the Instagram profile picture was the same picture. That was the only thing on there. And there was no contact, no comments, no captions. There was no information about this business at all. And I looked at my boyfriend, and I was like, why would I want to work with your range?
Yeah.
Nobody can find any information on it besides Google reviews. So why would I want to work
Yes.
with your range? Like, there's other ranges in the industry or in that community that have the hours of operation, that have like it's a business. One, and two, they took the time to hire a website builder to make their website show you what they're capable of. So I don't know. It's just like social media and business has been something that's blown my mind for so long. So now I feel like I kind of get the hang of it, but it's
Yeah,
crazy.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm glad we're talking about this. I do get a lot of questions about social media management, and it's I totally agree. If I wanted to do that like long term, I definitely would want to make a course that people could buy. I have like a little Google Doc with like my little like secrets that have like really bumped me up with following in the past, and I send those to like my good friends, but I don't like to just hand that stuff out because I had to
Yeah.
work really hard for it. So I'm glad we're talking about this because I can kind of, if people are ever curious about, what it's really like to run social media in the firearms industry, this is a really good example of that. So
Well, and I would
thank
even
you
say,
for
like,
sharing
the
your
people that have reached out to me recently, not even like, oh, I think I'm going to start a firearms and like account. They've reached out to me as an instructor and said, I'm
Oh,
going to start instructing, and I want to start a social media. How did you start your business? What licensing did you get? What insurance did you get? What
mhm.
this? And I was like, so you want my entire business plan for free? Like, I don't think you realize I'm 21 years old, and I figured this all out by myself. Nobody told me how to do
Yeah,
this. And I wanted
yeah,
it so bad that I made it happen, and I made it happen fast. So if you don't have the same drive, like, whatever, you like do it on your own pace. I don't have a problem with that. But
right.
like, I worked extremely hard for this. And if you want me to coach you through that, you better be willing to contribute to me. Like, I'm not saying this in a conceited way at all.
No,
I'm just saying,
no,
like, I went through, and I'm still going through the pains of having a business in its first year. But I went through those pains like everybody has their first 5 years, and I went through those pains in 1 year. Like, I condensed that time period down because like I'm always full-fledged ahead. And I had to struggle with that really, really hard. And it wasn't until a few months ago, like I was crying to my mom on the phone a few months ago in March. I was crying to my mom, or in April, last month, and told my mom, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like the business is failing. I'm doing everything that I can. I feel like I'm just doggy paddling to stay afloat as far as like my sanity, not even like financially. And I just like dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig and dig, and I'm never ever like reaching the surface that I want to reach. And my mom was just like, my mom's always the one that's like, maybe take a step back or reconsider your schedule, or, like it's always like that kind of mindset. And I'm not that way. I'm not like the, just sit down and have a good cry. I'm like, what is going on, And my mom finally was realized, she was like, this is what owning a business is like. And then she also looked at me and was like, I don't think like what I was doing at the time. She's like, I don't think the Lord wants you there right now. And I was like, okay. And, I have my own struggles with, when my mom wants to talk about things like this, and, which is a personal level. And she was like, let's pray about it. And I was like, okay, whatever. So she prayed for me, and, I just kind of went on with my day. And the next morning, basically what happened was I was trying to make an event happen that just wasn't happening. Like, it wasn't filling, there wasn't interest. And I was just trying so hard. And it was also going to be taking away from other things. And I was like, I just got to make this work. And basically, long story short, like the next day, I heard back from Arrange from another location that I've been trying to get a hold of for a long time. And they finally reached out to me. They scheduled the date. I told them everything that was going on. They had never met me, never talked to me. They scheduled the date. I put it on the website, and in 24 hours, we sold out. And I told my mom, I was like, wow. Obviously, my mom was like, the Lord was not opening doors for you there, but you weren't listening. Like, he was kept slamming it shut, not even just like keeping it shut. He kept slamming it in your face, and you couldn't see it until like I had to tell you. And so obviously, like, the Lord uses people to tell you. And I will always tell everybody who owns any business, you're going to have equally high days as you have low days. Like, every high that you have, you're going to have an equal low. So like, don't take that as discouragement, but also don't take your high days as encouragement, because you need to be preparing to take that really low hit too. So learning that, it's helped me in the last month, has helped me set up like how I'm viewing the rest of the year or the rest of the business or any other business that I run or I'm a part of. Like, it helps me realize like pride comes before a fall, and you have a really good month and you have a really bad month, or you try to make this event happen and it did really well in Idaho last year. And then I turned around and tried to do Orlando and was scrambling to make it happen. And that event ended up working out. But I see now that event ended up working out because like, and this is definitely like a personal side of things for those listening, but like the Lord put someone in that event and made that event happen. And that person, like, I needed to hear what they had to hear for me. So it wasn't even necessarily like that my business succeeded. It was because like the Lord had that person in there for me, and I needed to learn from that. So,
yeah,
I've had months where I was like, I think I can quit my job and I am good and I'm ready to go and whatever. And this is just like more business, not even like firearm instructing. And then
that's okay.
I had 4 months go by and I was like, I don't know if I want to make my rent, and so like, I've learned a lot being in specifically this industry, so I'm very thankful. But also the business that I'm in is also rewarding in the fact that, like, one, I get to see what I created happen. Two, sorry, I'm just checking my phone battery.
All good.
I got to see what I built happen. I got to see women walk away with confidence, so that's another thing. But also, like, I get 30 women every month that I get to connect with on a personal level and tell them, you know what, I'm going to help you. And I want to hear your story, and I want to be here, right here. Because even in a 30-person event, every single person gets one-on-one attention from me, or in the future, my assistant. So that's something really cool to me that I'm able to offer people, because I'm not just offering like a sense of fun or a ticket or an event and experience at school, but I'm also offering like somebody who has PTSD because they had a gun pointed at them. I'm offering them empowerment and confidence and like an ease of anxiousness because they now don't have that anymore, because I provided that space for them. And that's like the most rewarding thing. Like even today, I had a person that came in And she was like, yeah, I was involved in a shooting last year and I just really want to know how to use a gun because in the future, like she didn't have that experience where she was like triggered and traumatized, but she took more of the approach where like, if I'm in that situation again, I want to be able to take the gun and unload it. And I was like, that's amazing. And she was 21. So I was like, I can't believe that
Wow.
you're not reacting like this right now. Cause I think even I would. Um, but she did great and she was heading to Target and she was happy and her dad instructs firearms. And so I was like, you get to go home and tell your dad that you're better than him now. So like, it's
That's
just, I get to
amazing.
connect with those people on a
Yeah.
daily level. And that really does keep your cup full because like today I had moms and they got to go home and like feel like they're comfortable protecting their babies at home. And like, they're just normal people. We don't have like, I'm not training movie stars. I'm not training competitive shooters. I'm training the normal person who literally is just like, I don't want to learn from their husband, or I just don't feel comfortable going by myself, or I've had a gun in my closet for 3 years and I've never touched it because I just don't know what to do with it. So I
Yeah.
definitely think like it's rewarding as well as like super fun for me.
Yeah. That's amazing. That came so full circle. It's so nice to hear like an inside view of what you're going through. And thank you for being vulnerable on the podcast
Yeah.
because I know like it's not easy. So thank you for doing that. Um, do you kind of have an idea of like where you want your business to go this year or like maybe 2 years from now, 3 years from now? What are your intentions with that?
I guess this sounds like a bad business owner not having like my 5 year plan or whatever.
No,
I mean,
no.
so just like behind the scenes I mean, I don't really care. This is a conversation to me. This is me talking to you with somebody else listening, so I don't really mind. And it's not like it's insider secrets. But basically for the rest of the year, we almost have every month planned out. I just can't like officially announce it on Instagram and stuff because then people drive to the website and they look for that listing to sign up. So I can't like officially announce that. But July, so we're going to Idaho next year. We have July, ideally in Arizona. We have some things changing with how we set up our business in Arizona. So we're going to have to figure that out. August, we are planning and hoping to go to Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, which is super cool. Um,
Awesome.
September, we are going to a new location and officially announced September 2nd, we are going to St. George, Utah. And then September 9th, we're going back to Southern California. It's where I'm from. We have a ton of following there and we love it there, especially weird. California is really big on guns. And so that's September 9th. And then basically the rest of September is pretty much blocked off. I am traveling 4 months or 4 weekends out of September, out of the 4 weekends.
Okay.
October, I'm going to say this just for anybody in the area so you can hear and get a little like tidbit. I am looking to go to Nashville for the next event. And then November, December, we don't know for sure where we're going to go, but we have some ideas of like something we're throwing out. It's also hard with the holidays. But as far as expanding in the business, there's a few different ways that I see it going. But I'm not totally sold on any of them. So it's one of those things where I'm like,
Okay.
is it a smart decision? Like, it's not anything that I'm exploring. I think honestly, like currently at this moment, like today, yesterday, tomorrow, I'm exploring more personal growth, I guess, as far as like I have too many hats that I wear. So I'm like,
Okay.
I want
Okay.
to be in the real estate industry and I want to be in this industry and I'm in
Oh,
the personal training industry and I'm in this and I'm in that. And
yeah.
so like just expanding in all of
Right.
the things. So just like kind of personal growth at the same time as the business growth. So definitely bringing on an assistant this year already. So that's something that's been
Yeah.
in the works for a while and is
Really exciting.
official as of now. But we're still kind of
Yeah.
going through like all that kind of like teaching her how to do things. So
Yeah.
super exciting. It's fun to like create kind of like almost like a girls club, but not clicky, if that makes sense. Like I don't want it to be
Yes, it does.
clicky,
It does.
but like it is fun. Like I
Right.
was kept saying like it's really hard to find an assistant or somebody else that could help me because I need a mini me. Because what I
Makes
do is
sense.
not
Yeah.
a class and like teaching a curriculum. Like I can hand you curriculum and teach it all day. My thing is you have to be able to care about how well the charcuterie board looks just as much as I do because that
Yes.
matters to the event.
Yes.
So it's just important to me.
Okay, so I loved hearing about your business. That's awesome. As someone who's starting firearms instruction myself, this is all super great to hear. I'd love to kind of switch gears,
Yeah.
and if you'd like, I'd love to hear about how you got started with competition firearms and how you feel like that's complemented you as someone who believes in personal protection and self defense.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that's the reason I got into this industry. So that's why I am an instructor, because I got into competitive
Right.
shooting. So, basically, like, I grew up with firearms. Like, my dad took me out when I was young. I tell people I've been around firearms since I was 5, but I haven't been competing since I was 5 by any means. So, I started shooting. I've been around guns, very comfortable around guns in the household, like not necessarily like a shocker or intimidating or anything. I started shooting with my dad around 12, consistently. He was part of a mega church security team, and that church had death threats towards the pastor. So, I mean, any mega church security team is armed. That's just, it is what it is. So they were going out and basically doing security team bonding, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I want to go shooting. Like, I want to go.
Yeah.
And I was like having to skip 6th or whatever, 8th grade. And my dad was like, yeah, you can go. But I guess I didn't know till later that they told him no, but he brought me.
Okay.
Because he brought me and he gave me a 1911. He's like, show him how it's done. So I just kind of like, I still didn't know anything, but I was confident enough to do it. So I showed up and did my thing, and I was barely hitting stuff, but whatever. And then they were like, okay, well, she can handle her own and she's mature enough to be here. So they're cool with it. So I started coming out more consistently, and it wasn't weekly or anything. It was probably like every few months, but it happened. And, I kind of just got comfortable with those people. Those guys kind of became like second dads to me. Like, those were people like I knew when I was younger. Like, I remember telling people like, yeah, if my dad, something happened to my dad, like I knew I could call these guys. So it was just like very
Yeah.
comfortable with them. I still call them today. I called them like a few weeks ago when I was nervous about something, and I was like, hey, what's your opinion on this? I know you have a background in it. And like, I talked to 3 of the 4 guys that I'm used to talking to, like in that group. So I still talk to them today, still see them, still. And now they're like supporting my business in firearms industry. Like, can we pay my wife to come teach you? And I'm like, well, you taught me. Like, it was kind of crazy. So we've done that, and they started taking me out. And then in high school, I was driving, and my dad had to like work. He was like, I can't keep coming to shoot. Like, I have to work. So I would drive to the range and meet them at 7 a.m. and I would go to school at noon. So I would go to the range 7, shoot, go to school at noon. And then I started getting to the point where they're like, well, we really can't train you for anything else. Like, we kind of just need you to do something with this training. So we have a direction to put you in. And so they brought me out competitive shooting. And basically my first one, like my actual first one, I got dropped off and was like, have fun. And I was like, I have no idea who this is. I'm 16 years old. I don't have any connections. And my connection there was really sweet and nice, but it was very intimidating not knowing her to begin with. And then
That's fair.
then a year later, like an exact year later, my actual, like, I guess you could say my shooting mentor took me with him and introduced me to all his people and made it really fun. And I called my mom that day. I was like, hey, and being a kid who never did sports because they didn't like showing up consistently on a consistent schedule, I was like, hey, I'm going to be here every Saturday. And I was like, what? Like, who are you? So we basically did that. And then I showed up every Saturday. And by my 3rd month, I was progressing at a rate that was like kind of crazy, because at that point we had direction to go within my training. So I'd shoot on Saturday,
Right.
train 2 to 3 days during the week. And I was shooting about 2.5 to 3,000 rounds a month. And I was progressing at a rate that was pretty noticeable to all the other shooters.
Wow.
And I'm not saying this by any means that I was good, just I was progressing quickly. That was all.
No,
So
right. Of course.
basically this is December, by March, I was talking to a sponsor. And that was because I was a young individual and a young female, because I was 17. So I was a junior shooter. And as a business, like as a company, having somebody who has a lot of potential, who is young, and especially who's a female, because it's a very small part of the industry, they want to get their hands on those people because they want to, one, support, because they support, and 2, kind of have that name attached to them as they grow. So that kind of happened pretty quickly. And then I would say that was March. By April, I was classified. If you understand the USPSA, my first classification was C class. And then, so I never like went from unclassified to D to C. I just like bumped to C. And
That's
then,
amazing.
by November, I was a B class shooter. So
Wow.
it happened really fast. So during
Yeah.
that time, my first sponsor was Titan Ballistics, which was a competition firearm manufacturer out of California. And they never created pistols, but they created rifles and PCCs. So with
Nice.
that, they were like, well, we kind of need you to shoot our stuff. So we need you to do
Right.
3-gun. I would say about a year and a half after I started shooting, I started shooting 3-gun. And long personal stories mixed in was when I actually met my boyfriend when I started working for them. I ended up working for them, and then he worked there as well. We like shared a desk, and he was totally friend zoned, and
Oh.
I was like, no, I don't want, I'm not interested, and I have a boyfriend, and
Right.
whatever. We became best friends, and then we actually started shooting together a lot. And we actually, the reason we actually became friends is because we made TikTok dances together.
Oh my gosh, that's
And part of
awesome.
that is because of SHOT Show. Like we would make TikTok dances and we would post it on our story and be like, okay, you have 24 hours to respond. And so we would respond, and then our followers would vote. It was super stupid, but that's how we became friends.
I love that. And you guys are so
And
sweet together.
he's like the epitome of like, this sounds horrible. And I say this in a funny way, not in a
No.
rude way at all. He's the epitome of making it out of the friend zone, because I was like, I'm not interested. And then all of a sudden I was like, crap, I think I have feelings for him. But we started
Good for him.
shooting consistently. And then once I started shooting multi-gun, multi-gun's not very big in California. So we had to travel to Wyoming and to Colorado and to Utah and all these places. And every time we went, we were able to see Zion, or able to see Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or go to Yellowstone, or go to these things. So I was able to travel a lot and see these things just because I was showing up to a match. So it was super rad.
Awesome.
And then, just shot multi-gun and got well versed. And so ultimately USPSA was my base, and that's what got me good in pistol, or good enough in pistol. I would say that pistol's my song shoot, so that's why I say good. And
Gotcha.
then started shooting pistol and shotgun as well as PCC. So that's how I kind of got into it all. That's a really long version of it. But then after that, I was teaching some classes for Titan, and I did just really basic instruction, like, hey, this is a safety course. This is nothing crazy. Because I'm not a professional shooter, and on the professional level, I'm not competing up there. I'm not top 10, and I'm not going to complain, or I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to tell you that I can do that, but I can make you a safe shooter, and I can teach you the
Right.
basics, and I can get you through, and I can get you to competitive shooting, and I can give you some pointers, but I'm not going to tell you that I'm a competitive shooting coach. Just
That's fair.
because, not necessarily that I couldn't, but like, I don't
Right.
know. I like the basic stuff. But yeah,
That's
that's kind of how I
okay.
got into it. And then the past 2 years, I've been in like multi-gun, 3-gun, and kind of USPSA with my sponsors.
That's amazing. I would even argue that basic instruction is more important because you're taking these people who have maybe no experience or limited experience, and then you're one of their first impressions with a firearm. So
Yeah.
it's it's more than just it's basic, right? Because of the maybe the curriculum, but the entire lessons itself is so much more than that.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And so what class are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I think I'm B class. I didn't shoot. Okay. So
Okay.
I got classified as B class or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's B class. I don't think I'm A
Okay.
class. I would remember that. Um,
Right.
I got
I mean, you are
classified.
really busy.
I got classified, and then I kind of stopped shooting USPSA because during
Okay.
that, I also moved from California to Arizona. So once I moved
Yeah.
out of my parents' house and was on my own, shooting kind of took a multi-gun was more important to me than USPSA at that time anyways. And then when I did move from California to Arizona, like the transition and all that kind of stuff did definitely put shooting on I don't want to say a back burner, because we still had it going and it was never like not a priority, but it wasn't necessarily a weekly thing to show up to the local matches anymore.
Gotcha.
Partially because like literally once I started shooting multi-gun was the point where in life where I was literally 18, that I
Yeah.
started shooting or traveling 3 weekends out of the month. So for about
Wow.
2 years,
Okay.
I've been traveling at least one large trip a month, which I'm extremely blessed by. And I've so
Oh
like
yes.
I mean I'm pretty sure I've said it enough on this. Like I've gotten to see so much, I've gotten
Oh
to
yeah.
experience so much, I've gotten to go so many places. But I will say, like, there is that. I mean, anybody talks about like work-life balance or like any type of that.
Right.
It's extremely difficult to work a 9 to 5 or to work Monday through Friday and then leave Friday at 7 p.m. and come back Sunday night at 11 p.m. and wake up Monday morning at 5 a.m. And that time you're in, to me, that's work. Like my brain is on. Even if the weekend was a fun weekend or a shooting weekend or whatever, you're not getting that time to recoup your life, to wash your dishes and to make sure your clothes are full, not even folded, just washed in general, or make sure your car got cleaned out from last weekend. Like, cause there's a lot of times where my car wasn't cleaned out from 3 weekends ago. So it's just it's always on the go. And at that point it gets so overwhelming that I always was just asking, like, I don't want to travel. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay home. So it was one of the things that I had to learn, like this last month. We basically blocked off the last 3 weekends of the month to not travel. And then it ended up being the whole month. And I was so thankful because it made me so rejuvenated. And I'm like, let's travel again. And I'm sure at the end of this month, I'm going to be burnt out again. But the burnout is very, it happens really quick when you wear a lot of hats and when you travel a lot and when you have to do things. And also, like, I moved my parents to go visit my parents. That's a 3 to 4 day trip because you can't just turn around and go. Going to California to visit my boyfriend's parents, like you have to go out of your way to go see them. It's not just pop over for dinner on Tuesday night. So those people that mean a lot to you, I like to mean a lot to us as far as family. We have to go out of our way to spend not just like a day or two with them. It's like 3 or 4 days. And then all the things that we do on top of that, like traveling or doing anything else here, that takes your whole weekend. That takes all your time. So, part of me is I'm a people person and I have FOMO too. Like I'm definitely an extrovert and I want to be a part of everything and I don't want to miss anything. And it's hard being somebody who wants to be friends with people and wants that connection. And, when I am at home, the 1 weekend I'm home a month, there's that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I have like one friend and they're busy and I don't have any friends, and it's not necessarily that. It's just because my life is so wild. Keeping a connection with that person in such an in-depth way is really challenging. So I think the people in your life, I think you kind of learn this when you get older as well. Like people who are older are like, you don't need 10 friends. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's hard being 21 and seeing every other 21-year-old have 15 friends and they all wear the same outfit out to drinks and they look cute and whatever. It's like, that's kind of discouraging because I feel like that part I missed out on. But at the same time, I call my mom and she's like, you really think all the girls in the sorority like each other? You really think every girl in that photo likes each other in that moment? No, they're taking the photo because they want to show off that they have friends. And I'm like, true.
Yes.
So then you realize like the people that you are around and you are spending your time with, they mean that much more to you, which also you get extremely picky. Like if they don't mean that much and you are spending like the only time that you have, you're like, why am I spending this with you? I want to spend this with people that I actually care about. So you just get really picky with your time and with your everything that you do. And I think that's one of the things that I'm realizing even this week is just like, if this is not serving any of the goals that I'm in, which is actually one of my not goals this year was like, say no to the things that are not serving your goals. Within conversations, within finances, within friends, within whatever. Like if this conversation is not getting you somewhere and it's just either tearing you down, tearing somebody else down, or not pushing you towards a goal, or it's not actually like filling your soul, shut the conversation down and change the topic. And really trying to like focus like everything around that. Like if this meal is not serving your goals, if this business decision is not serving your goals, if this financial decision isn't serving your goals, every single thing. And we have so many decisions that we make throughout the day. And like, when you only have this much to give, you get really, really picky with how you give it. So I think like learning that I don't know how this turned from competition shooting into this, but,
no, it's okay. Let it flow.
I don't know. It's just, that's super important to me. And I think,
absolutely.
Like if you would have told me when I was 16, the year before I started competitive shooting, that this is what my life was going to look like in 6 years, I'd be like, what? Why? Like, it's not even like a no way. I would just be like, why? Like, this is like, not just like crazy to me and like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. It's more like, I can't believe it took that many turns and twists and like, but it still took that many turns and twists, but it still stayed within the same industry. And it still stayed within the same people. And I still have those same connections. Like the way the growth works is never linear. And that's in fitness, that's in relationships, that's whenever. Like growth is never linear. It's always going to be this.
Right.
I don't know. It's just like, it's so cool to see and like watch. And I'm like so blessed to have the connections that I have in this industry and the people that I've met and the cool stories I've heard. And like part of this industry can be ugly. I won't lie about that. I mean, one, it's a male dominated industry. So for females, two, some of the people just want to have opinions to have opinions. Like they just want to have opinions.
Yes.
They just want to tear you down, or they don't like the industry. So they want to come after people in the industry and they just don't support firearms or whatever it may be. So part of
Yes.
it can be ugly, but part of it also is like, it's a big industry, but it's also really small.
Yeah.
Like everybody
Yes.
knows everybody. And that, I feel like that's every industry, you know,
Right.
but everybody knows everybody at the end of the day, or everybody knows somebody that you know. And
Hmm.
I mean, business and life is all about connection. So I think the more that you can get connected, the more that you can network, the more that you can do that. The same thing in competition shooting that I told everybody. Like, if you want to like start competing, show up to a match and don't compete, and just have a smile on your face and introduce yourself to people and just watch them shoot.
Yes.
And what's going to happen is those friends are going to be like, well, why don't you just come shoot with us? Like, we'll be happy to teach you. So I think
Yeah.
the other part of that ugly community, that, I mean, that's any community can be ugly, is there's a lot of really supportive people who are willing to get people into firearms and get people into
Yes.
competitive shooting and get people into doing things that you don't hear. Like, people who hear competitive shooting, they're like, what is that? I've never heard of that.
Right.
And then you try to
Right.
explain it. You're like, let me just show you a video because I don't know how to explain this, you know?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I think the first person I reached out to was Justine Williams, and she's a grandmaster. And so she was having to like go back into the archives of when she started when she was like 8 years old and help me. And then I met Lisa Hamilton. I like happened upon her on Instagram and found out she lived like an hour from me. And so I was like, hey man, like I know you don't know me from Eve, but could I like show up to your competition? She was like, hell yeah, bring it on. And then she explained everything to me so much that I distracted her and she forgot, I think that day. And Lisa, if you're listening, I'm sorry if this is wrong, but she forgot to refill her mag. And she ended up like being short, I don't know, like 3 rounds or something, and she just kind of had to call it. They were like, if you are done, she was like, oh yeah, I'm done. But yeah, so it's so helpful. That's absolutely so true. Just, and competition shooting, the reason I got into it is because I felt super insecure with my gun handling. And I was like, of course, I had already built up like a social media following, and I kind of felt this imposter syndrome. I was like, I should
Mm-hmm.
be better with my shot, with my gun handling. I don't even know how to move and shoot. And so I just kind of started it, and the training itself has just made me feel more comfortable. And it's showed me more like holes in my training as well. And anyway, I love that encouragement. That was absolutely my experience as well. And yeah, I've never had anyone like turn me down from it. I've heard some bad stories, but
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I even remember my first competition, somebody there who was like a regular, I guess you could say, was like, everybody is here to help everybody. And if they're not, they can leave. And
That's amazing.
I loved hearing that. I think some
Yeah.
people had told me like, "Oh, I don't know, it's really intimidating." Some of the people are really cliquey, and there might be a few of those people in every club, But I think that for
Right.
the most part, most people are willing to help and get you involved, because at the end of the day, like, even the top of the top, like if you were to walk up to JJ Rakraza and be like, could I just come watch you shoot, and like, maybe not explain things, but like if you ask him like, hey, I'm interested in getting competition shooting, could you direct me in that place? He's not gonna be like, no, I see you as competition. No. He's gonna be like, yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I have all these resources. Like those, even the top of the top people who are in it to win, to get money from this,
Yeah.
they're all willing to bring a new shooter in. They're all willing to teach a new shooter. They're all willing to be like, hey, even if I can't teach you, like, I have a friend there this weekend you can go watch or get a hold of. And, you know,
Right.
truthfully, like, my boyfriend who worked at a competitive shooting company, he was hired on to just, make ammo. He wasn't hired on because he knew anything about guns or because he was a competitive shooter. He was hired on for a minimum wage job at the time, at the very much so at the time. It lasted for like a week. But they didn't know he had a degree. They didn't know anything about him. They're like, we just need a guy to make ammo. And he's like, okay, I can make ammo. And he progressed through that company, but still never shot competitively. He'd shot guns, whatever. And funny story enough, my boyfriend who had met me, he was the ammo guy, and I came in and I used his machine, and nobody told me it was his machine. And I was like, I'm gonna use his machine, I'm gonna make ammo, I'm gonna make my stuff. And he was like, who the heck is this girl coming into my shop on my machine? And he had music on, and I was singing to all the music, and he hated it.
Oh
And
my
he was like,
God.
this chick is so annoying. So every time I would sing along to the song, he would change it. but I knew
Oh
all the
my gosh.
songs. And so now
Yeah,
still, like, when I sing along to songs in the car, he'll change it and he'll be like,
that's so funny.
but so anyways,
Yeah,
long story short,
I love that.
what happened was our boss, his boss, my sponsor, was like, "Oh, well, I'm not gonna be there this weekend for your match, but if you go, there's a chick that can walk you through it, and like she'll walk you through, teach you the ropes for the match, and show you how to shoot, and walk you through how to set up and tear down as far as because at the time I was doing the registration table." And
Nice.
he was like, "Okay, like I guess I'll show up." So he shows up and it's me. And he was
That's awesome.
so mad. Um, but I ended up walking him through the whole match. So he'll tell you, like, his first experience shooting a match was me walking him through it. And now I don't want to say neck and neck because he has a lot of skills that are a little bit above mine. And like my last match I did good at, but I was practicing and he wasn't. So, it was raining for him.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things right now,
Yes.
like performance level wise, we're able to, he's not behind me.
Right.
I brought him in and he trained a ton and I've trained a ton individually and we've had all our different backgrounds. His rifle handling skills are amazing compared to mine. My pistol handling skills, I think, are great compared to his, but he also,
Okay,
then I
okay.
say that
Yeah.
and then we go shoot and our pistol handling skills are pretty much neck and neck. And so I'm like, crap, I gotta go train. I gotta beat my boyfriend. I can't be doing this. So I think
Awesome.
it's
Yes.
definitely a healthy competition because we don't come home and bicker about it.
Yeah.
Like we joke
Right,
about it. We're
right.
like, oh, it was raining for you. Is that your excuse? That's what we talk about. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's so fun. And I will say the biggest thing about competitive shooting was the friends that we've made. Like there are friends that I made in the first year of competitive shooting that we still stay at Airbnb houses with when we go to matches, and we still squad with them when we go out of our way to do that, even though we no longer are on the same sponsored teams and we no longer have lifestyles like people in California. We drive to Texas and we all shoot together. We all stay in the same Airbnb. We all squad together because those are the friendships that we just love and foster. And it's so cool to
Yeah.
like see those people that are really lovely people,
Yeah.
genuinely lovely people that we talk about and we're like, I'd invite them to our wedding. Like that's just like those are the
Yes.
people who are just mean so much.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, that wedding invitation is a big indicator. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm glad to have met you too. And I know when I met him, his humor was like I had to get used to it. I was like, oh my God, does he fucking hate me? And
Yeah.
then the next second he'd be like, so when are you gonna visit Arizona? And I'd be like, okay, he doesn't hate me. And then we'd like go back and forth. So I got used to it by the end of the week, but
Yeah.
at first I was like trying to figure out he's very funny and you two together are
Very, and
very,
he's
very
very dry.
sweet.
Like, and I think we both are very,
Yes.
very sarcastic. Um,
Okay.
and I
Yes.
think he lands a few more jokes than I'm able to like. Think I'm landing a joke, and he's like, "That wasn't funny." I'm
Uh,
like, "Oh, okay," But definitely,
I'll laugh
like
at it.
I think I'm able to balance them out and be like, "Okay, that was a little far," because I know you were like the sweetest person ever. And
Thank you.
I remember you just being like, okay, so excuse me if I'm, asking too much information. And we're like, we don't care. Like, we have nothing, like and
Yes.
I appreciate that from people because a lot
Right.
of people aren't that way or they don't care. Or they don't go out of their
Right.
way to say those things. And I'm
Right.
really realizing, and I think and this is like a personal like growth thing too.
Yeah.
I'm really
Yeah.
realizing the importance of feminine softness as well
Yeah.
as intention with words as far as saying the things that you would only write in a card or saying the things that you would only say at someone's funeral. Like just going out of
Yeah.
your way to be like, I just want you to know that I really appreciate and value you as a friend. And just leave it at that. And
Yeah.
it's out of the blue. It's not because, they did something for you or you
Yeah.
canceled on them or whatever it is. Just like really going out of your way to be like, just wanted to say hi and I really appreciate and value you. And it's those words like value or appreciate, not just like I love you, or not that love doesn't have a really deep meaning, but like just those
Right. Of
things that you
course.
don't necessarily say when you're like, okay, bye, see you soon, or bye, love you. Like
Right.
it's like, hey, I
Right.
want you to know, like, as a person, I'm happy you're in my life because not only are you adding to my life, but you're teaching me things. And like
Yeah.
having, I don't know, this is really strange, but like having
No, go
that
for it.
genuine like sweetness of like as a female, I'm realizing
Yeah.
can be used in such powerful ways, even though it
Yes.
seems, I guess it could seem meek or weak, or like, I guess, submissive. I think that there's a way to be extremely sweet and genuine and soft and fluid as far as your personality. but also still
Yeah.
be seen and be seen as beautiful, but also still be
Right.
seen as assertive and powerful and be able to be a force to be reckoned with without having to be like, oh, I'm a badass and I'm going to take you down and I'm worth
Yes.
this and you should look at me like a man and I'm equal. Like, you don't need to have that attitude. And I think that attitude actually comes off way more gross to me. Like, it actually comes off disgusting to
Yes.
me because it looks like you're
Yeah.
just trying to prove something to nobody.
Yes. That's very true. And I feel like people do that when they don't really know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They just know what they think they want to be seen
Mm-hmm.
as. So, yes, that's totally true. And everything you're saying, I believe in divine timing. So I'm sure someone listening to this episode has kind of been like, "Oh wow, yeah, oh my gosh," like had epiphanies just from
Right.
things you're saying. And you never know what you're going to get from a podcast episode. That's probably the most fun thing about like being a host is like I learned so much from my guest speakers, and not just about them, but like my like point of view on life has broadened so much since I started, and it's because of things like this. And I totally agree with you, and I feel like I even get that from just being around you, which I know I've only been around you. I was going to say once. It was more than once in a week, but I definitely got that vibe from you. Just you're very confident, but you're also willing to share like your ways. I don't know how to explain it. I wish I would have thought about this a little bit better. Like
No,
you're
not at
so
all.
confident, but you're inclusive. And like I feel like those two words don't go together very well. Like people, if they're confident, they're seen as arrogant, almost like it's almost like a word that you pair with something negative connotation. But even with your kind of like powerfulness, you're like willing to bring people in and help them and encourage them and lift them up. So I definitely wanted to be around you all week, and I was always like, where are you going to be tomorrow?
Aw.
So yes, could
I think
definitely vouch for that being
that's a
true.
huge compliment.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
actually heard, I heard it with another podcast. I heard a female speaker. I don't know what her name was, but talking about like confidence. And I've always kind of said like there's a difference between confidence and cocky, um, because
Yes,
there's a way to be
100%.
confident and there's a way to be arrogant and rude and brash and come off that way.
Yes.
And I think that
Yeah.
there's a very fine line in between the two, but there's also a very thick line between the two. You know, like you can see the difference. Um,
Yes.
but in that podcast, she had said, and I love this because it wasn't necessarily like an attitude, it was an attribute of confidence. Like confidence, she wasn't saying that, but she was explaining how in confidence, when you see people who are confident, you'll see the very base element of it is just the willingness to try. It's not
Yeah.
the willingness to see, it's not the attitude that you're going to win or you're going to be successful. It's the
Mm,
attitude of willing to try. And I loved that
I love that. Yeah.
because I realized that the people who have confidence, they don't have confidence that they're going to succeed at whatever they're trying to do or whatever they're doing or whatever it is. It's just that they know that they're willing and able to try it. They're able to do it. And I actually brought that up to somebody because I was on a news article or segment, and it basically happened within 24 hours. So I didn't have enough time to even think about like what I was going to say, what the topic was, what it was. I didn't even get the topic until 3 hours before the actual show.
Wow.
And I was just so nervous and so overwhelmed and talked to so many people. And somebody was like, if I know one chick that can put a dude in his place, like, cause I was worried the actual article was going to be anti firearm. So I was worried that I was going to have to
Oh,
go in with
okay.
that kind of attitude. And it was not, it was beautiful. And she's like, if I know any girl that could put a guy in his place, it would be you. And it's like, I'm like the least I want to be confrontational and I want to be like, yeah, that's what I said. But in my back of the head, that's not actually what happened. And that's what I thought in my head and it didn't come out. And I was like, I don't know. And I even looked at her and I was like, I can say with confidence that I may not be able to do it, but I will do it. Like, I may not be able to put a guy in his place, but I'll do it confidently. And it may not be
Right.
successful and it may not land right or, like whatever that thing is, I was like, I can tell you right now that I cannot do everything, but I am willing to try anything because
Yeah.
for some reason, like, and I think I remember you asking me in Vegas, we were like walking on the strip and you're like, how are you so confident? You're so young. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of things that could have, like, my dad made jokes that he thought were funny, which to any other person would have been damaging. I would have had to go to therapy because of, I thought they were funny. I laughed it off. I never thought anything of it. And now when I'm older, I'm like, hey, you should make those jokes to other people because it never landed with me, but with that person, it's not gonna be okay, you know? And I'm able to see that now,
Okay.
like, but I don't know how that worked out to being a confident young woman. Like, I didn't have friends I remember not having friends in second grade. I remember not having friends in sixth grade. I remember not having friends in junior high. I remember not having friends in high school. Like, I had friends, I had my one or two, but I never had that click. I never was the popular girl.
Mm.
I mean, if I was, I didn't know it. Like, I had no idea. I never was that person who was invited to every party. You know, that just wasn't it. And, you know, everybody's like, it's because they're jealous or whatever. It doesn't matter. It still sucks to feel
Right,
like
right.
you're not friends with somebody, or it still
Of
sucks to feel like you're on
course.
the outside of the crew, or you're on the outside, you're not the cool one, and whatever. But I
Right.
definitely think
Right.
throughout all those stages in life, I had my own style. I stood out all the time, and I knew I stood out. It wasn't because I was trying to, it was just because I just, that was my personality. Those were the clothes that I wore. Those were the hobbies that I did. Those are the things that I was interested in. I was never interested in dance and soccer and football and whatever it was, because I just wasn't me, you know. And
That's okay. Yeah.
I realized, you know, my mom, I think I had told you, and this is not at all like, I don't want anybody listening to be like, wow, this girl is cocky. Like, you know, I'm saying this
Right.
because like I'm thankful for this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm actually appreciative. I'm not saying this because like this is who I am and I accept me. But like I remember my mom in like first grade being like, did everybody compliment your outfit? And I said, you know, no. She's like, well, they were thinking it. But now
Yeah.
I look back and I realize my mom had messed up teeth. My mom had no friends. My mom was the poor kid. She always tells me about how she thought it was amazing that they got to drink Kool-Aid and Cheeto Puffs on Friday night. Like that was their like big thing. But she didn't realize it was because her mom was on financial assistance. Like my mom, she felt like the ugly duckling. She, you know, she didn't really figure out her business for a long time. You know, my mom went through all that stuff. And then I realized, you know, my mom made it. She was a fashion designer. She had 4 showrooms across the country. She did all this stuff. And then I didn't realize until I was doing a bikini competition, my mom kept saying, no, 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 no. And I was realizing all the conversation she was having. I realized my mom had body dysmorphia. And the reason that I have so much confidence and I don't think anything about a scale in the house is because my mom didn't raise me with a scale in the house because she couldn't stand to look at herself. But what that did to
Okay.
me
Wow.
was I attached no feelings to a number on a scale. I have no problems with that.
Yeah.
If I was 40 pounds heavier and looked the same way, I wouldn't care because I don't attach that number. And being in the personal training industry, that's
Right.
huge, you know? So I realized that my mom's struggles, she may not have tried to instill that in me. Like she may not have been mentally thinking, I don't want to do that to my daughter. But the process that she was going through with herself made me have a base here that was able to build on instead of her having this
Right.
like I don't know if that makes sense, but
It
um
does.
like my mom struggled with things and because she was trying to heal herself, like it made me like not have those problems ever. And I think that
Right. That's
and
amazing.
granted, you know, every parent makes mistakes. There's things that she's done, there's things that I've done in our relationship that have not been good, and we've had a lot of hard times, especially in the last few years. But I'm able to realize like now, even a few months more than, you know, than 3 months ago, I'm realizing like there's people my age that are parents, and like we look up to our parents like these people, and it's like they're just people. They're just trying to raise us. They're also going through their own struggles. And as kids, you don't think about that. They're like they're your parents.
Right.
Their whole world is me, and you
Yes.
forget that they're also 25 and they're also you know, barely
Yeah.
making ends meet. They're also throwing up to work and having their own problems with their work friends that we complain about all day long, because that's our whole life, you know, like we don't know anything
Right.
different. But like as kids, like our parents went to us, like that's their whole life. And I never felt like I was less than, because my parents made me feel like I was this prize. And I think that's also because I grew up with Christian values. Um, and,
Yes.
you know, my
Yes.
dad made that a point to be, you know, my dad made, I was the princess, but also never got like special treatment. Like he treated me like that verbally. But I still had my chores. We never had an allowance. We never had, you know, like it wasn't that kind of thing. And I say a lot of this because I think people think, you know, I say I went to private school and people are like, wow, you had a lot of money growing up, or you had a lot of experience growing up that a lot of kids didn't. And I do agree with that. But I also know that my parents went through a lot of financial hardship and chose to give up certain things, like the other fun things that we could have had in life, or the trips that we could have gone on in life, or the other things that other kids maybe got. so we could be on financial assistance and go to private school because they didn't trust the public school system because they wanted us to have a Christian value like in the school. And because of that, we didn't get a lot of other things. But now I see that I'm like, they made the right decision. Like, I can't believe that they made so much sacrificing to let us go to private school. And like, see, like all these things make people who they are. People are like, why are you so driven? Well, I have an older brother who's not in my life, and he was I guess the black sheep or the screw up, you could say, of the family. He was dealt a lot of really bad cards, but he also chose all the cards to not get into that hand as well. You know, like he chose the bad cards as well. And so I think I was able to see like my mom and dad did everything right with him, and he still chose. I don't want to say he went, his path took him, or he, you know what, ended up. He chose to go a certain place. And I saw what he was doing, and I remember thinking like at 13, I was like, let's do the opposite. And I like went a completely different direction. I was like, I don't want to do what he did, so let's go the opposite direction. And then I think like, I don't know, like I think about things a lot differently than a lot of people, I think. And I'm not saying that to be like, wow, I'm somebody to listen to at all. But like talking, like conversations like this really bring that out, I think.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. And like I said, I don't know how we've gone from competition shooting to this.
No,
but
you're reflecting, you know, on your life. Like someone has sat you down in front of a microphone, you know, and camera and said, like, tell me about your life. And I'm glad you're reflecting live because those are all such wonderful points. And those are all such important lessons that our parents are also growing up that, you know, we are responsible for our own path, you know, good or bad. And it's, I love hearing where you came from, and your parents sound wonderful. And even if, you know, someone listening is not religious or spiritual, whatever you kind of want to call it, I personally am. I was raised Catholic and then converted to kind of Christianity. Um, Even if you maybe don't follow those practices, you can at least appreciate that, like having some moral grounding to kind of like steer you in life can be incredibly impactful. So yeah, seriously, thank you for sharing that. And when it comes to like the self-defense part of all of this, do you feel like that's something that you're wanting to kind of also share on your page? I know, not to like totally switch gears, but I know we've talked about your instruction business, like just getting comfortable with firearms, and then you talked about competition shooting. Is self-defense something that your parents also kind of instilled in you, like being able to protect yourself and kind of be self-reliant in that sense?
I think self-reliant is where the self-defense comes from, because I'm already a confident person. I'm very, very independent as far as like 16 paying for my own groceries, because I was like, I don't want you to tell me what to do.
Oh my goodness.
And it wasn't like I wanted to be rebellious. I just didn't. I was like, I can pay for it myself, so I'm going to. So the self-defense part of it is definitely a big thing. You know, my dad always made sure, like, you know, my mom told me at 10, 8 years old, she was like, you don't go into a room when there's only one other man there, like things like that. And I think also I grew up with a great surrounding, so I was a little bit bubbled when it came to bad people. I thought I always think the best of everybody until they prove me wrong, whereas as opposed to looking for the worst in everybody. And I think that's a really great way to live, but there's also two sides to that. Because if you do look for the worst, you never get walked upon, but you also never make friends. And if you do look for the best, you can get walked upon a lot and get taken advantage of, but you also have a lot of those people that are wonderful. So I think there's a good way to be both. But self-defense has definitely been a really big thing, especially like being so independent. You know, my dad was like, okay, well, she's going to be driving and she's going to be off on her own and she's going to be this. And I think because I was at work at 4 a.m., my first job, you know, like my first real job, it was one of those things where my dad was like, I don't really care if you're going to have other issues. I'm not going to directly go into what I'm trying to say here, but I think you guys can kind of infer this as a young person. He was like, I don't really care if you're going to have other issues. I'd rather have you not get taken advantage of. I'd rather not have you get, you know, whatever it may be, whether it is human trafficked or raped or abducted or whatever it may be. I'd rather have that not happen. I'd rather have you face the consequences somewhere else. And I don't know if you guys can really tell where I'm going to take this as you want. So carrying a firearm was very comfortable to me very early on. just having one at home, I knew where they were. I knew what to do when it happened. I knew to, you don't say anything unless you talk to a lawyer. I knew all that kind of stuff, even though the intention behind it was pure. My dad kind of just said those things really early on, because my dad was, at the end of the day, was the protector of the household, and he felt like I needed to know that stuff. Did he impart that to my brothers? I don't know if they got that. I don't think it was because my dad chose favorites or because, whatever. I just think I was the one that was receptive to it. And I was the one that was interested in it, and I was interested in the guns, and I was interested in all that kind of stuff. So my dad made sure that I knew. And then just being a young female, like, I just kind of was like, yeah, this is what I do. And people were like, oh, you're the gun girl. And so I kind of just was like, yeah, well, we can go shooting, or I can teach you how, or whatever. And self-defense was a huge part of that, because I think as the world gets worse, and maybe not even gets worse, I mean, this stuff has been around forever. It's just it's shown. We can see it. It's all the time. It's more transparent now than ever how evil the world is. It just becomes more and more of a scare factor of like, you need to be able to protect yourself. And the big thing is, like, you're not always going to have anybody else to depend on. And unfortunately, now the Good Samaritans don't exist. So, and not only that, do they not exist, but they don't exist and they're videoing it happen. So it's on the media of somebody getting hurt instead of them stepping in to do something. So that really just shows you, like, nobody is coming to help you. Nobody is there to rely on. Even, and I learned that, like, from a philosophical standpoint, like, never to rely on anybody, because nobody's ever going to be there for you. Like, you're going to be there for you. But self-defense for sure. Like, I don't want to say this like I'm a man hater or nobody can protect me or whatever, but like at the end of the day, like, you have to have your own life. Like, my boyfriend is not going to follow me around like a puppy dog to protect me. Like, that's just not how life works.
Right.
Same thing for a husband, same thing for a dad, same thing for anything. And I just think as a parent, and especially as a parent, but also as like a partner or whatever, as a parent, you worry about your kids leaving, and you worry about your kids growing and doing their things and making their own mistakes, but also like what can happen to them, because you're not in control. You can't keep them in this nest for so long. So of course, as a parent, I think my parents kind of gave me that direction. Like, you do need to be able to protect yourself. We want you to know how to protect yourself. But it was never to the point where they're like, we want you to be a competitive shooter and teach other people how to do this. I just think I felt such an pulling, I guess, on my heart to be like, so many women feel like your mom, and they're not able to protect themselves. And I think that was the eye-opener for me, was my mom, who had guns in her home her whole life since burying my dad, and a daughter who's a competitive shooter. I asked her to unload her firearm without asking questions, and she couldn't tell me. And I was like, what? And then I realized we were talking about that in the gym that I worked at, which was all girls. And they were like, well, I don't know. We have guns in the house. Like, and I was like, well, do you know how to unload a firearm? And they're like, no. And I was like, what? You guys don't even know how to unload it? But to me, that was like mind blowing. And then I realized this is the norm. So I think it branched from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, self-defense was a huge thing. And then, being an influencer in the industry, everybody wants to give you products to try out and put it on your Instagram. And so I started learning about, different types of holsters, different types of belts, different types of concealment, different types of all this stuff. I kind of think like I was learning that stuff before I was even interested in it. And then I was like, well, now I learn and know it. I'm really interested in it. So now I'm going to impart this knowledge to other people.
Kind of like it was practical to do for yourself. And then you were like, you saw that there was like a gap in the industry, and then we're like, okay, might as well share my knowledge.
Yeah. And I also think like when I was making some of the videos I was making, like I was one of the only, I don't want to say I was one of the only, but like I felt like I didn't really see people making the TikTok or the Instagram content that was trendy. Or was like dancing, or that was funny, or to the trending videos. But I was young enough to see all those, but I was using those same videos and making them like the educational videos that they were using. I was making education about firearms, because the firearms industry is slowly evolving, but has been the FUD generation for so long. So the trends are coming from the people in their 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, because those are the people who have a say in the industry. And now this is all changing, because they're finally, I think people have told me, they're like, the firearms industry is like 10 years behind. I'm like, I guess that kind of makes sense. Like they're just now really starting to expand on the influencer side of things. And they're just now starting in like that kind of stuff. I guess I got pushed into that. So concealed carry content was trendy now, and it was interesting, or it was funny, or I was making a joke about it. And so that's kind of where it expanded from there.
Yeah, I like it. This is something I was talking about my friend from Walther the other day, that like essentially the entertaining content kind of supports and brings in new people to your
Mhm.
page, whereas like the educational content nourishes the people that are already
Mhm.
following
That's a
you.
really good way
So
to
there's
put it.
like right, like nothing is wrong with entertaining content. I got to a point where I was like, okay, if I post something entertaining, I have to post something educational next, and then I have to do like a gear review or something. And I just got so like pigeonholed, and now I just kind of do whatever I feel like I'm creative about. Of course, I haven't posted in the last 3 weeks because I haven't been in my own house or had any gear except for like these past few days. But yeah, like I think it's great that you've found that balance and that you were kind of part of that wave, that almost that first wave of influencing in a way. That's really cool. I wish I would have found your page earlier. I found you through BTO before going to shot. I was on the phone with them and I was like, okay, who else is going? And they were like, Adelina, you know Adelina. And I was like, no, I don't think I do. And then I found you and I was like, what the hell? Like
Yeah.
I would have loved to connect with you like a lot
Yeah.
sooner, but
Which, and
I'm
by
glad
the
I
way,
connected with
people
you.
listening, like, huge supporter of BTO as well. So,
Yes.
um, but yeah,
That's
so
awesome. Sorry.
no, that's really it.
Yeah, is that something you want to share, that BTO kind of like supports girls who just want to have guns? Or
Yeah, so I mean, they've supported me for a while. They're not necessarily like supporting of like not that they're not supporting, but
right.
I work with them more on the Adelina Mae side of things more now. We did
Okay.
that for a while. They definitely help propel my business in certain ways. Just on like
Awesome.
quite honestly, like, and this is nothing to air out business deals at all. It just kind of like was a weird like connection with between the two. So we kind of just decided to
Sure.
keep it between the influencing side of like the Adelina Mae brand.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I work with them more. But huge supporter of them. They're a great resource. I throw them out to everybody. I try to, post as much as I can on my stories about them. But yeah,
That's awesome. Also, have I been saying your name wrong? Is it Adelina
everybody
and
says
not
it wrong, so
Adelina?
don't feel bad. Um,
Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm actually named after a George Strait song, and the song is Adelaida, with a D, but my
Oh my
parents spelt it
gosh.
wrong, or they didn't spell it wrong, but they spelt it the way that they did. But phonetically, you are saying my
Oh,
name correctly. So it phonetically
okay.
it looks like Adelina. If you were to ask anybody in the dictionary, it'd be pronounced Adelina, but my parents pronounce it Adelina, and so
Okay.
that's how I pronounce it. But yeah,
Oh, well, they're both
thank
gorgeous. You
you.
can't really go wrong, but I'm happy to know that now. I think it's because I've called you Addie to like my fiance. I was like, yeah, Addie's coming on, and
Hmm.
like when I've talked to BTO post shot show, I'd say Addie. But so now that I'm saying your full name, I guess I didn't really think of it because I just call you Addie.
Yeah,
So
no worries.
yeah, well, I have enjoyed this so much. I feel like I've learned so much about you, and I hope anyone listening feels encouraged. This was just such an encouraging episode. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I'm going to listen
Yes.
back to this.
Oh,
'Cause you said you've made so many good points about life and what we can kind of learn from firearms instruction. In addition to just the shooting part, right? There's so much more to it. So, um, as far as anything, I just totally word vomited. Before we end the episode, is there anything you would like to send the listeners off with?
when you use firearms, please use them safely. um, check out my
Yeah.
Instagram and my businesses. That's really the biggest thing to me. That's what really supports me, and I love that. And if you know anybody in the areas for the events that we host, please send them my direction. And that's pretty much about it. Be safe, and be encouraging, and be a kind person. That's really it.
Amen. Absolutely. Yes. And again, her social media will be in the show notes. So anyone wanting to look can just go there for easy access. Otherwise, for exclusive video content with guest speakers, you can become a Patreon. You'll receive a thank you note, podcast stickers, and more exclusive content. You can visit She Shield on Instagram and TikTok for show updates, pictures of the guest speakers, and podcast highlights. A special thank you to Sagetta Gear, a sponsor of She Shield, for concealed carry gear and duty gear. You can use code SHESHIELD10, that's SHESHIELD, the number 10, for 10% off your Sagetta Gear order and to support the pod. All resources mentioned will be linked in the show notes. And if you like the pod, you can help by liking, subscribing, and leaving a review on the platform you are currently listening on. And if you or anyone else you know is struggling with mental health or going through a crisis and they are a firearms owner, you can send them to Hold My Guns organization. They work with federally licensed locations for firearms to hold either the firearm itself or a pivotal part of the firearm while the individual going through the crisis is recovering. So if that's something you would like to look into, that will be in the show notes. In the meantime, thank you for listening. Stay safe and stay vigilant. Goodbye.